Relaunch of the Discords are completed as one of the first major initiatives undertaken with the new community department. This is also going to kickstart a whole bunch of other areas that we've been working on, introducing new initiatives and updates in the way that we communicate and market and engage with the community, both existing community and broader industries. One of these initiatives was just to basically start having these regular chats, at least once a week with the community, a consistent, reliable, and published ecosystem comms calendar that will touch on everything from these sorts of weekly casual chats to much more extensive AMAs with the relevant kind of product or department leads from the community. Another component you'll see coming out shortly as well is the launch of some updates to the Futureverse website, which will allow us to have a kind of single source of truth for all of our news across Futureverse. This will help with kind of consolidation of the various different comms channels that we have. MoMeta, you seem to have just got a new role here in Discord. You've currently now got a role that says you're part of the Futureverse team.
Oh, shucks. Yeah, guys, I have joined the team full time. I did so last week. I'm just sort of finding my feet at the moment and working everything out, but I'm coming in as a part of the marketing team. With Web3 being very different to Web2 regarding those information channels or where people learn about stuff and how we also understand where our markets are, they thought it'd be a good idea to bring me on as I have a different type of flavor that I can add to the team. Now, my role is very specific to the Root network. When you think about anything that's being powered by the Futureverse on the Root network, that's my lane. That's where I'm going to be right there. So when it comes to people we want joining us, the ones that are going to be developing on the network, as well as basically getting that information out there about it. The traditional sources of information that flows out into different ecosystems as far as bringing people in is really hard to target. And due to the fact I've already got some really great relationships with content creators, and other areas where people get their information out in the crypto communities and NFT communities, the team thought it'd be a good idea if I came on board. But I guess one of the main roles I want to bring in is helping getting education out. And that's in the way of like explainer videos. I've been part of the community for long enough to know what we need. And when we drop something new, I wanted a video to go out with it, explaining how it works. I want to be utilized as someone who speaks publicly as well. Obviously, at the moment, Aaron's taking the lion's share. That's a lot of, keynote speaking positions, but we need to be involved in spaces too. I need to be able to get, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but nearly every time I join a space, my invitation to speak button lights up pretty quick. And I want to jump in there and I want to share what we're doing. But it's really important that we put those safety rails on my role. We get the language right regarding what I can and can't say. And but for me, it's a lot easier than what it is for the Futureverse team. When you're marketing the Root network, it's open source. This is transparency. Blockchain is all about transparency. So for me, it's about being able to take that accurate information and getting it to the people who are going to benefit from it. And at the moment, everything we're building that's powered by the Futureverse, like the Future Pass, is an example of what other people can do on the network. And so for me, I'm coming on board fresh on the team, and it's going to take me a little bit, just to get the creative team and figure out how it all works. But, they often say, if you want to go fast, go alone. Well, I'm not going alone anymore. So there's going to be a lot less shit posting from me and a lot more, should we say, behind the scenes. You're not going to see my fingerprints on everything I'm doing, but that's how it works best. So I'm super excited to be part of the team. And let's go.
From your perspective and having come from, the community to kind of regularly engaging with the core team and leadership team here to now being part of the team without exposing any trade secrets or breaching any confidentiality stuff, what's been the most interesting part of that journey for you going from the community side to kind of being behind the curtain now? What's been, I guess, most surprising?
For me, it's experiencing the emotion that's gone into the roll-up. Even when I saw those discords all, come down into that one discord, I could feel that. I could feel that from the team. Because the team has been on this journey with these different companies and these little families. The roll-up of the Discord was like the final part of, starting from fresh. But it's a bit of sad too. It's also saying goodbye. But I think it's important for the community to know that these are a lot of new people working together, and everyone is just getting to know each other. It's the best of the best. It's amazing how much has still been shipped recently and is being shipped, and what's in the pipeline, considering the magnitude of the task of bringing everyone together. Everything has to happen at the right time. I am very confident that I am in the right place, and everyone in the community should just take a breath and know what's coming for us is a long game, but it will all happen in the right order, and it's impressive.
Some of you may not be aware that our board of directors contains the likes of the former COO of IBM, the former CEO of Madison Square Garden and Christie's Auction House. In fact, our president, Ken Cron, is the former CEO of Activision Blizzard, and the person who actually took World of Warcraft to market when merch. I'm actually meeting with the new person that we have leading merch on Monday to review where we are on that. I know it's been a long, drawn-out process. There's been a lot of hurdles and unfortunate difficulties in the merch process from various people that we've worked with trying to get this across the line. A lot of samples, a lot of rejects. I can't give you a date, but just know that merch is still being worked on. Is the roll-up all rolled up? Futureverse firing on all cylinders as a full team now, or still onboarding the teams and getting going? We're probably 90+% there in terms of, yes, all the legal's done, all the financials done, all the kind of structural organizational stuff is done. And now we're in the final processes of just fine-tuning. We've implemented most of the new processes around how the different teams and departments work, and it's just fine-tuning some of those processes. Yeah, I would say that, the Futureverse roll-up is done. It's firing on all cylinders. Some of them are still just getting up to speed. There's a few kind of key senior roles that we're starting to go to market for around various kind of VP or head of level roles as well. Question here from NFT Bro. We saw in the Sir Paul Callahan report a Futureverse $1 billion valuation in June. Will the team ever release official comms on this? We do have official comms regarding this coming out in, I believe, later this month, on some pretty major publications as well. Is there any light you can shed on why David has only posted in the ASM Discord twice in the last 3.5 months? We miss him. David and the rest of the innovation black box department, now called Sector 369, are basically all locked in a basement somewhere, training robots to be our new overlords. We have established the new innovation department, which David, as Chief Innovation Officer, is leading. So a lot of the stuff that they're working on there, it's really kind of our Skunkworks brand. If any of you are familiar with Skunkworks in the US military, basically they're kind of greenfields research department that start driving a lot of the discovery, research, and kind of early stage development of innovative new products that we then productionize. Can touch on broader comms. It would be good to get David and more of the kind of leadership people, including some of the key VPs, just engaging a bit more with the community. I know David's still pretty active on Twitter, but also in terms of, as I've touched on before, in the new comms calendar that we're looking to put out, which will cover everything from casual chats like this through to bigger technical deep dives and that sort of stuff. I'm working with the relevant people in leadership to set out a schedule for that makes sense. And one of the ones that I want to have, I'd say, this quarter is a real kind of introduction to our new innovation department with David. It'll be difficult for us to really pull back the curtain on anything that's going on there because it is such a kind of black box department. But I guess trying to give an insight into what the strategy is there, and actually, some of the kind of early stage AI stuff that we'll be bringing out and probably sort of alpha testing There'll be some coordinated comms around that as well. So, hey Alex, with the rollout complete, who is in charge of organizing operations? With so many different product streams, who and how are products kept moving so they don't stagnate? Who is in charge of allocating resources and teams to make sure projects are moving along and not stop start? I know Aaron is CEO, but who are the other top C-suite positions in place? Who is chief operations, etc.? Basically, with a 250 person plus organization, what organizational streams are in place so things don't slip through the cracks? Because at an end user level, it looks like a lot of things slip through the cracks due to lack of organization. Small things like timeframes for product delivery, product execution like delivery of the Bombus. Heard about it, then nothing since. Other product streams like Gods and Goblins, you have a burst of info, then nothing. It seems so disjointed. Is it really organized behind the scenes, or are we just missing? Because to an outsider, it doesn't look cohesive. There has obviously been a lot of work that's gone on with the roll up. We had these various individual companies with their various product strategies, but it has, as we've now come together under Futureverse, we've had to basically review every single product initiative, work stream, or piece of tech that we have either out there currently, that we have in production, that we've promised or discussed at some level, and prioritize and allocate resources to them. There has been some stuff that, as individual companies, we would have looked to expedite further, but under the new Futureverse strategy, they've had to, I guess, fall down slightly in terms of the priority. But a lot of that comes from the broader approach of how we look at Futureverse as a tech company that is building this foundational technology that empowers a lot of the other products and services and experiences that we're building. As you say, Aaron is CEO. He's also acting Chief Product Officer at the moment, but we have a very strong product leadership in the VPs, and we also have an internal governance group that makes decisions on. We essentially meet weekly, and it's all of the C-suite and VPs basically making decisions on which product initiatives are going into development, which stage they are at in terms of pre-production, production, delivery, etc., etc. Have that as basically a full council that decides on the prioritization of different initiatives and products. So that means with that more structured process in place, that once a product or initiative is kind of under production, unless something major happens, it's very unlikely that it will be put on hold at all, because we have mapped it all out in such a way that we have allocated the sufficient resources to take it through the various development stages and ensure that at each kind of gate it's reviewed by the relevant people across leadership to ensure that it still aligns with wider company and product strategy. It's easy to see that certain things look like they've stagnated, and I think that's where when we started there were lots, so many different kind of product streams, where a lot of those have all been kind of rolled into one larger initiative now, and it's how can we continue to develop and deliver value and utility across the range of brands and products and collectibles that we have in the market without it kind of focusing too much on one area or another, because we just put all of our efforts into one specific work stream, then those from the community that are interested or engaged in the other areas basically feel like they've been left behind. It's driven very much from the kind of platform first approach for Futureverse as a tech company, and that how the platform then empowers all of these various other experiences. Some people I talk to worry that the company has gotten so corporate that the team no longer cares about delivering value back to asset holders as opposed to investors. How would you respond to people who have this FUD? Just at a broad high level note around kind of FUD, and this is something that we actually took the time to include in the actual onboarding and the rules and roles of the new Discord structure, is that it's only natural for people to experience fear, uncertainty, and doubt when it comes to, well, I guess anything in their life that they are either emotionally or financially invested in. I would just say, look, firstly, like we're not here to kind of just ignore or shut down or ban people that FUD, but if you are going to present these concerns, then at least do so kind of in a constructive manner that kind of respects the fact that, we are all people here as well, working, trying to deliver the best possible product and create the best possible company for all of you. The idea that we can serve the interests of investors, the idea that we would shift and focus from serving the interests of the community to serving the interests of investors is a bit of a non-starter, because without a strong, engaged community who feel valued and see value in our products, then the company itself is somewhat worthless. Really, it's kind of in our best interest to deliver as much value to the community as possible, because that will increase the engagement with our products. It will increase the overall network effect of everything that's being run on the root network and is kind of powered by Futureverse, which in turn increases the value for investors.
You'll see a lot more focus on the future pass, because the future pass is that key to the open metaverse where all these experiences live. So it's really important that we get the future pass right, we get it out, and we get the opportunity to then move forward with that as our way of interacting in the open metaverse safely and securely. And that's what we really need to happen. And that's an area that I'm going to be working on very closely.
Um, there is still development going on all things Fluflets, but I can't give any definitive timeline on that. Although there is some exciting partnership stuff happening on that front too. How does the team at Futureverse plan to bring forth more engagement within the community? And is there a way to implement a DAO system for people to vote on and give proposals for the success of the project? I think it's quite a multifaceted question. In terms of engagement, there's a range of different kind of levels to engagement. Just what we've been working on now in terms of consolidating our channels and restructuring the Discord as an example is a good way to kind of bring our community, the kind of individual constituent communities more closely together to form something that is much stronger. And then I think a key thing there, we're obviously working very hard on rolling out lots of different services and experiences and these sorts of things, which will drive a lot of engagement. But until then, it's about, okay, well, how do we kind of just bring the community together? And the main way of achieving that is really focusing on kind of our commonalities and fun, doing stuff like the poker nights and these sorts of things. They're just very simple ways of us kind of creating a bit more fun and engagement within the community. As we start to roll out more of the kind of games and experiences and products, if we look in the sort of experiential level, there'll be a lot more sort of events and engagements and competitions around the specific games that we start rolling out. Engagement from a technical developer community perspective, a big side of that's going to happen as we really start to roll out a lot more of the developer resources and tools over the coming months for, I guess, the infrastructure level of the root network, but then also more of the platform level of the tools that we're developing and rolling out things like Future Score and DOT and that as well. Future Pass. That's where some of that engagement as well will be driven by things like the incubator and accelerator. So getting developer communities engaged because there's a opportunity to build a viable business product there, with us helping fund that as well. In terms of DAO, I mean there's lots of different areas that we're exploring around how community can have more involvement or say on the certain components of products or projects. And personally, I've been quite skeptical of DAO structures within Web3. I think in part because there's ways to exploit them. And actually, if you look at, in many cases, engagements on DAOs, most people end up delegating their votes to one or two people who then end up having the vast majority and basically dictating all of the strategy moving forward. It's also important to note that as much as we love the feedback from the community in certain areas, it's a lot of the stuff that we're working on behind the scenes confidentially, which is driving our product strategy, is not visible to the community. So there can be misalignment in terms of what the community perceives as the best direction for a product versus what we perceive based on the product partnership conversations that we're having or the kind of proprietary tech that we're developing. If a DAO ends up going off in the wrong direction, that can basically be the death knell for a product. Is Future Score still coming this month? Yes. Yes, it is. There's actually just some final tweaks that are being made on the user experience around wallet linking, merging, all of that sort of stuff, which is why we've pushed it back slightly. We didn't want to launch Future Score before we had all the systems and processes in place to allow everyone to kind of link multiple wallets, because we want to make sure that people are running that all through kind of just one Future Score, and then they're not being disadvantaged because they had multiple wallets and then set up multiple future passes, because that was the only option in the earlier days. Are you guys overwhelmed or burnt out? Is the team big enough, and is the funding there? Honestly, I would say, I can only speak for myself and the people that I engage with mostly. I think there was definitely burnout earlier in the year through the whole roll up and merger process. It's just such a monumental undertaking, that I know a lot of people came out of that very burnt out. And even especially for the individual kind of company leaders and going through that process with all of their teams and re-interviewing and restructuring and placing people into the relevant roles. It's a very energetically and emotionally taxing process. And coming out of that, it's honestly, and speaking for myself, but I feel like this is probably a similar sentiment for many people in the team, and that now that we're through that process and now that we have the new teams all in place and we've got all the processes flowing, I think most people are really in a good space now that it's just flowing really naturally and it's all very manageable. We have so many ambitious plans and so many opportunities. There's always going to be big opportunities knocking on the door. I don't know if there ever is big enough. I think it's just about scaling in a sustainable way, that ensures that you don't, I guess the difficulty that if I look back on non-fungible labs, for example, and the rate that we scaled in a year, going from like 2 full-time staff to I think 80 in a year itself, was a very difficult process to manage, and it did lead to certain inefficiencies. There isn't really an answer to, is the team big enough? We are still hiring for certain roles as we take the need for them across different departments. Touched on before, there's a few key ones in leadership that we're working through at the moment. To your final question there, yes, the funding is there. And as I touched on before, there'll be some announcements around that in the coming weeks.
I am not the only new hire, especially in the marketing team. So there is a whole fresh new crew coming in with heaps of enthusiasm and energy, who know the ecosystem really well, know the community, and just really want to get on with it. So there's a brand new lease of life coming in as well.
For those of you not familiar with the meme, 30 Minutes Max came from the original mint day of Fluff. When we launched, took the mint live, there was some technical difficulties that we were resolving in the background. We had a lot of people there, ready to smash the keyboard. And I was jumping between Discord and was it Clubhouse? I think when Clubhouse was still a thing, trying to kind of hold off the masses and provide updates. And essentially the only update I could give at the time was that it'll be fixed and resolved in 30 minutes max. I think it took about 45 minutes, but that's a bit of context for those of you who are newer to the community. What's next for ASM Protocol? More on the FIFA partnership, AFA, TNL, ATOM, something else. So there's a few different areas here. Is that obviously we've launched the FIFA AI League Women's World Cup app this week. We're getting really good feedback on that. I know there's a few people saying that certain elements of it don't feel like they're functioning properly. We've got the team actively working into this. We'll likely be rolling out some patches in the next couple of weeks to try and improve the user experience there. But it's really good for us. We can do a certain level of internal testing, but to actually have it out in the market and get that feedback from the community as well is really good to help us kind of refine it and put it into the best possible state for broader appeal. And you may have seen there's actually been a few announcements from the likes of FIFA themselves, and there was one, I forget who it was, publication that came out today as well. In terms of AFA, we'll give you some more in-depth updates on AFA. I need to follow up with the team on that, but I know essentially all the AFA development had been somewhat paused to focus on FIFA and to really kind of get that AI League kind of MVP out, and then be able to kind of build AFA on the back of that, taking the lessons. But that had been taken through that experience, but the partnership with FIFA was just too big of an opportunity to pass up. TNL, we are currently targeting game launch for the end of this year. We'll keep you posted on the status of that as we start getting closer to, I guess, alpha, beta testing and all of that. There'll be a few more kind of key milestones that happen before there around opening gym bags, etc. Atom, there's we touched on before. There's AFA All Stars carts as a sort of mini game that's being worked on at the moment. That's, I guess, similar to Atom in that it's a first kind of driver use case of ASM Brains, and there'll be some lessons taken from that which will apply to the way that the game development for Atom rolls out as well. But Atom is very much well in development too.
I don't really have anything to ask about, but nobody else was talking, so I wanted to say, hey, are you guys still doing venues and party packs, and what was the other one that people ask? Female party bears. You guys are still doing those things or not?
So venues come into the wider kind of development of Third Kingdom. Obviously, when it came to Party Bears launching the roadmap, this is before Shadows even joined Non-Fungible Labs. There are a lot of ambitious deliverables within there. If you just take, I guess, the swappables component in of itself, that is a very optimistic deliverable with the original Shadows team size and funding, which I don't think would have been a realistic deliverable, but it's something that we've progressed very well, and it will lay the foundations for all of our kind of accessory and swappables technology across all of our collections. Some of you may have seen Aaron teased a little video on some of the swappables tech that's being worked on at the moment, and that is a key component of party packs as well. There's within party packs there's also accessories, so that's something that we didn't want to necessarily launch all of these accessories without people actually being able to utilize them, at least within a short term. The other component with party packs as well is that, and this has been raised a lot of times, is that party packs was always going to be another product mint, like it was going to be a revenue generating event, which in part because we had partnered with a number of large musicians to engage in this process, and there are financial obligations to those parties. Broadly speaking, party packs is developed to a certain point but has been put on hold for strategic purposes. I don't think anyone in the community wants us to try and sell them anything new right now, and this is where really our focus this year has been to continue on building the tech and the platform and the protocols to allow for a lot more of this interoperability and functionality across these collections. So, party packs will definitely see the light of day at some point, but there's a few other key components that we want to ensure are in place, and probably a review of how we meet those financial obligations to third parties, while also, not necessarily just doing another kind of mint for the existing community, and expecting people to want to shell out money, especially in the current state of the market. The other one, female bears, I'm not certain. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, it was never something that was confirmed on our roadmap. It was, I believe, mentioned by TJ at some point. It's not a no. It's just not something that's currently actively in production at all. There's a lot of other existing commitments that we need to deliver on before we'd look at doing something like that.
Are there any talks to building a rentum system for party bearers and fluff holders for music artists and record labels? Let's say you have a party bear or a fluff and you want to rent it to a music artist or to a record label, but then you can like earn either a percentage of the royalties or set a price to rent it. Is there any talks to make a sort of marketplace like that?
I don't believe there is internally at the moment. I know there are some third-party tools that do kind of NFT renting, or I believe there are at least. If someone's interested in building a similar type of service or tool for the Root network, that's certainly something that we could explore as supporting through our incubator program. In terms of music, I mean, we're actively working closely with the likes of Warner Music, who are one of our key partners, on a lot of our broader music strategy. There is components of, I guess, the digital kind of metastar aspect of music engagement there, but there's a few other key product channels that we're targeting there as well.
I think the female party bearer thing came from, I think you guys had released like a diagram that had all the different projects involved and how they might kind of link together. And female party bearers was on that diagram.
There are a lot of other kind of key existing product deliverables and commitments that we need to follow up on before we can look at kind of creating another. Launching something like that would just basically be taking the first step in another whole product initiative. It would basically be putting another plate up onto a stick to start spinning when we've already got a fair few that need to be managed. So I wouldn't say it's something that's been taken off the table entirely, but I'd say also with what's happening around Fluflets and breeding and all of the work that's going into that there'll be the ability for us to kind of expand on the strategy being applied there, and utilize it across a wider strategy for party bears as well.
And then just a follow-up question. Obviously, I've been going pretty hard on this FIFA game, and I know you've talked about different people working and how they're working together. I know a lot of people have been kind of asking for some balancing updates because certain skills are a little bit OP. Is that something that's like directly Futureverse, or is that also FIFA has people that are on the team working on it together, or is there like a certain size of that team?
It's mostly us in terms of development, and as I touched on before, like the feedback that we've been getting back so far has been really helpful, and there will be some updates and patches done in the coming weeks. It's important to remember it's only been 3 days since it launched, so they are working on reviewing a lot of the feedback that's coming through and looking at how we action that. But yes, that is pretty much entirely done in-house. It's most of the stuff with FIFA is just around broader kind of strategy and branding and how we continue to evolve those experiences to build out the experience. Any updates on the Root network interfacing with other chains and or networks? There's been a lot of work done on bridging for Ethereum and bridging for XRPL. Those are the two main focuses right now. Once we get those two nailed, then we'll look to expand beyond that, chains and services. So I guess that's looking at things like Polkadot, which is also built on Substrate, and also things like Ethereum layer 2s. What would be the broad view of the state of the root network? Is it testing phase almost over and ready to go fully live? Yes. So I think in terms of going fully live with the root network, there's a few things that need to be done. On the technical side, there's just a few pieces on like the application layer of FuturePass and that which need to be finalized. The root token price discovery and the process for that with exchanges as well, which due to confidentiality, I really can't say anything more about exchanges. The key thing is with the, decentralized exchange as well, is that we need to have price discovery happen before the actual decentralized exchange launches. So you'll see those happen in pretty quick succession from each other, and then I'd say from there, I guess we'd look to probably formally announce that as the root network being sort of out of alpha beta mode and fully live and functioning. But I guess it's still then version 1. And there have been people asking around the way that the root network is currently structured, and certain components of it seem rather centralized. I mean, that's natural for a product as it's still in kind of the early stages. Once we launch staking nodes and all of those sorts of things, it will become a more decentralized network. But especially in this early stages, when we're still developing a lot of the core protocol components and the core applications, some of the structure around it and the way that tokens are held, etc., is done in a bit more of a centralized format. But that will obviously all decentralize as we take it live and people start running their own nodes, etc. Final question. Okay, I'll do these last two. Will there ever be another Fluff House? As I've touched on before, we have no major event strategy for this year in terms of the kind of state of the market, and B, state of our product delivery. It doesn't really make sense for us to do, spend loads of money on events if there isn't a, conversion and onboarding path there. So I think once we get into next year with more products actually live in market and more of a kind of bridge between traditional Web 2 and Web 3, you'll see a lot more of community in real life events start to happen. Whether those actually come in the form of Fluff House or whether it's something that's more broad under all of Futureverse is a decision yet to be made. Will ABG ever help to market TNL? Yes, but when it makes sense to. As I've said, it doesn't really make sense for them to promote something that, a game that doesn't exist yet. But much like with FIFA, you will have seen, or you may have seen, that they've been posting about the AI League game over the last sort of 24 hours because it's now live. So I think when we get closer to the actual launch of the TNL game and the other experiences that come around that, then you'll see, ABG kind of assist in the marketing of that as well. I am 10 minutes late for my next meeting, so I should really jump.